Hello there, I am AYB, founder of SPAG AI, where we help businesses automate their process and implement AI in their workflows. So today we'll be looking at Formata by Zapier. What exactly is Formata by Zapier? Formata by Zapier is actually a built-in tool in Zapier that's used to transform data from one form to another. So what are like the things that we're going to be looking at? First, we're going to look at the the most common use cases of formatter, right? The format dates. Then we look at how to split text. We're going to look at how to replace text, and then we're going to finally look at the lookup table. So let's jump straight into it. So the first thing I want you to see is that formatter can be used to, so this is the first use case, right? We want to actually format data. Usually there are some times where we have data in a kind of format that is not usable in our system. We cannot use it. It's not useful, right? Because the format at which the data is not cannot be used or cannot be processed by our system. So we use formatter actually to transform this particular date to a different form that can be used in our system, right? So that's exactly what we use formatter, right, to format date, right? So that's the first use case, right? So we're going to use it to transform a date that is not usable to a particular date that can be used in our system, that our system understands and we can also read. So that's the first use case, right? So that's I'm waiting for my tab to load and then we jump straight into it right away. So just give me a sec and wait for this stuff to pump. So I'm back. So the first use case we have here is like we receive, let's say we have a trigger that triggers every day by 9 a.m., right? And then that means once it's 9 a.m., this particular workflow will be triggered. And then usually this particular schedule by Zapier sometimes output dates that are not really that's not easy to understand by our system. So let's say I found a particular date that give an output of, right? So you can see that the date is not properly formatted. You can see we have 2025 7, and then the hour, and then it's more of like a 24-hour stuff, right? And you can see that now we have an option where we have to choose the date we actually want to format it to. So we have something like the month, day. So this is preferable data I want, and then you have to choose the date at which the format you are trying to change is from. So the format is like from this particular the date is particular from this format. You can see we have month, we have day, then we have t in between, and then we have the hour and the minutes, right? So that's what we have to do. Just impute this particular, follow this format, and then the next thing we want to do is that we have passed that step. So the next step is to fill it in our Airtable. So Airtable is like a database where we can store data. So what I did was that I created a database for this particular project. So you can see the before and then the after the data has been changed. So this is like the before, right? Where you see the date that is not in the properly formatted form, and then after it has been transformed, right? So this is right. I picked it from this particular field, so I'll just put it there, and I don't want to do it again. So I'm just removing it, right? So what I'll do is now, if I run this particular step right now, is to create a record in my Airtable, right? Which I have done twice before, but I'll do it again so you can see it right there in my Airtable record that now you can see now we have it has been created. It has been created. So if you check my Airtable record, it's going to come in now. Just a second. You can see that we have the date after and then we have the date before, right? You can see this is not usually what we want. We usually want something that is easy to understand like this. So that's the first use case. So we have another use case where we can split data, and then we can also, so I'm going to be merging two use cases together. We have the splits, and then we look at the lookup table. So in this particular scenario, we are going to be using we're going to be looking at three different application. Tally is a form builder, right? If you have not, like, form builders are used to build form is just a simple interface where you can input your information, and then it can be recorded into a particular system, something that looks like this is exactly how tally forms tally form looks like. You can just create a form, a name, email, company, how can we help you, and how did you hear about it. This is exactly how the form looks like, right? So whenever this form is created, we want something to happen, and it's like we want a particular deal to be created in our CRM, right? And our CRM, the CRM we're using here is called Pipedrive. So Pipedrive is a sales CRM, very simple sales CRM that helps just to track your deals and all of your contacts and every of the companies you're working with. So whenever somebody fills in that form, we want to check our system to see if that person exists in our system because we don't want duplicates. But we also want to create we also want to create a company for that person, right? And then we want to create a deal, right? So those are like the three things we want to, but we want to verify if first the person exists in our system because we don't want um to have duplicates in our system. So that's exactly what we are going to do first, right? So if you check, so you go back right to the particular workflow, you can see that we have some series of steps. So let's say the person submitted the form, so you can see the trigger is actually the trigger to this workflow is actually the contact form. The form that we have here is the contact form. So once it's submitted, right, I've pulled a particular record, right, that I'm going to use to test this particular step, right. Now, if I continue with now, let me see if I can get the latest record so that we can use the most updated record to actually continue this particular workflow, right. I think that's the most updated. So that's like Angel list, Naval Ravikant. So so let's continue. So now, the first thing I want to do, so I'm still going to talk about formatter within this particular workflow. But I just want to walk you through this workflow, and then you see how formatter comes to use, right? So if you see, if you run this particular now, the next step is to find organization. So I want to actually look into my pipe drive and see, okay, does that particular organization is or a company name there into the form? So I'm going to check with formatter to see, okay, does that company exist in my CRM? So if it does not exist, Pipedrive has Zapier has an option where you can create it. So what I did was that okay, I'll create that company, right? So what I'll do now is that now after it has been created, right? So you see, I think this was not the initial one I used, right? Because initial one I used was, let me see, what I'll do is that let me impute the form again with a new record. So this time I want to use name. Let's use Mark. I think I have Mark in my system. Yes, let's use something that is very because I have quite a number of tech entrepreneurs in my system. Let me use Larry. I think I don't have Larry Ellison. I don't think so. So let's use Larry Ellison. Okay. So now just say Larry at right, and then so let's now definitely name of his company is Oracle. Let's say Inc. Mm, right? And then how did you want to? We are interested in AI automation with Make or Zapier. We just want any of them. We got to know you through LinkedIn. And then once you submit this form, then we can use that record. So if I come over here and I come over to submission, right? And then I find new record, it's going to pull up submission C, which is the most updated submission. And then you can see that we have LinkedIn and then Larry Ellison as the stuff. So we use this as a test data for a particular stuff. So the next thing we want to do is like now you can see that we have Oracle now. Now, so if we run this step now, it's going to search my system and see if Oracle exists. So and then let's do that right now. So let's retest the step. So if I check my system, my pipe drive system, you see that now the let me see. So it has created has created an organization, right? And now what it wants to do now is like what I want to do right now is to now remember I said that we have a different use case. So we are going to use a particular function here in Zapier in Formata that helps you to split text. So now when we collected the details from the form, we remember we just collected the name. We didn't even collect the first or the last name, right? It was intentional because I just wanted to like test this particular function. So we put the entire like so we just come over here and then we put the name from the form, right? As you can see, Larry Ellison. And then there's a particular documentation that helps you like this is like the separator index, right? You can check for the documentation. Yeah, you can just it's found on you can just go for search it on Google, right? Zapier's formatter separation index or something like that. So you see this syntax and also we actually want to separate it with the space in the sense that whenever we are trying to say whenever there is a space, I want you to separate that from the other. So that's exactly what we are going to do. So now you see, we know we have Larry space Ellison. So it's going to split Larry and then to output that different fields. So you can see I said segment it and output at different fields. So I run this particular stuff to look exactly like this. So no, that was like Naval. So let's do it for this guy now. So you see that it will split Larry and then Ellison as like different fields. As you can see Larry and Ellison. Can you see? So that's like the split text stuff. You can always find it in the text function in Formata by Zapier. Text function, right? Remember the first one was date function, right? Here. This one is text function, and then you check for split, right? Split text. So after we have done that, we can move to the next step. So next step is that after we have looked for the organization, we also want to look for the name, right? We are like, okay, does this person name exists in our system? So there's only one unique identifier for names, right? Usually the emails, right? Most people can have the same email, right? They can have the same name, but they cannot have the same email. So we're going to use the email as like the unique search identifier, right? So we can just put the email. So we are saying if this particular search does not exist, then you can create something like that. So now, one another thing we did that we linked it to the organization that was created. Now, you remember there was no Oracle Inc., so we created it. So we are linking this person that we created with that organization that exists, right? So now we are also putting the first name and the last name, Larry and Ellison. So if we run this particular step and do it to create a person, and then we link that person to the organization that was created in the previous step. So now that's exactly what we have now, right? So we have Larry Ellison has been created in our system, right? I'm going to show you every of these things so that you can see that it was actually done. So now one thing I want to do is also this is where we're going to look at the lookup table, right? And this my I want you to just carefully look at this particular stuff. This is where we're going to use the lookup table. In Pipedrive have they have a particular function, right? Where now this is like the naval stuff we had right now. So we now there's a particular function here that says I'm trying to look for it. I think it's on the due, right? So it's on the due function, right? There is a custom field right in Pipedrive. So we want to like map this custom field. Can you see that Larry Ellison has been created, right? But there's one thing that I want to like point out is that now if you check this particular custom field right here, so you can see that we have different names, right? We have different names, different like values. So Pipedrive does not see this particular stuff as values, it's actually represented as ID right here in Zapier.com. So if you go back to Zapier right now, you see that after what we did was now I I represented every of this particular stuff in form of numbers because that's exactly what Pipedrive understands. So if you output and then you put the number 33 in that particular output in that deal source field, it understands that 33 is for LinkedIn. So let me show you exactly what I mean. So if I go back to this particular, so after I've created the person, I want to, after I've created the person, I want to create a deal. Right? So this is the format for the deal. I put the name of the company and then I put this two pipeline and then I'm putting the name, the company name, and then the name of the person personally. So this is exactly what I'm saying about the deal source right now. So there are two options. You can actually use the static, right, where we can't change it. So you can see right under the static, you can see that we have IDs there. So these are the IDs that we use to create the lookup table. So what we did was that, okay, right as we want pipe drive, okay, Zapier, the field that is coming from the look at the field that is coming from the form, right? That's exactly what we did here. They're saying, look at the field. This is the field that's coming from the form. Then look at this lookup table, right? And then look at the number that is associated with it. Then convert this particular thing, this stuff, to the number. So that's exactly what we are doing. So what I did, how did I get this number? I got this number right here in Zapier, right? Because every of these numbers are actually represented, right? So if you can see here, so I just copy the number and then put it right there in the lookup table, right? So it's so that it can. So the reason why we cannot use the static value in sense that if we choose Facebook now, it will always use Facebook all of the time. But meanwhile, somebody from the form might choose websites because that's exactly how they got to know about us. So we have to like be careful that okay, we don't choose a static value, we want a dynamic value. So that's exactly why we're using a dynamic value. And then you can see that the output we have here, how do I put this output? You definitely just come over to the lookup table value and then it will so remember it transformed, like we said, formatter is used for transforming data. So it transformed that field from Facebook or LinkedIn to the particular number that is associated with LinkedIn on Pipedrive. So Pipedrive understand the word, the number 33, might not understand Facebook or LinkedIn. So that's exactly why we did that. So that's exactly why we use this lookup table. So when we run this particular stuff, you can see that there's you might be asking that, okay, yeah, but we've not actually done this particular stuff and then it has run. Remember, we submitted the form, right? And the automation was already live, so it's just created it right away, right? You can see that the company Oracle Inc. was created, it was linked to a person, and then we have a deal. So if you check the stuff here, you can see that a deal was created. It was linked to Oracle Inc., which is the organization, and then the person, which is Larry Ellison. So that is one use case. So we looked at how to split with split text, and then we looked at lookup table. So the final one is how to replace text. So in this particular scenario, we are going to be looking at how we can replace text right in Zapier, right, with formatter. So let's say we receive inquiry from our clients. Let's say our clients that actually want to ask about our businesses, right? So they dropped an email. So I'm going to show you exactly how the email looks like. It is like an inquiry email asking about our services. So they are saying, I want to know about Zapier services, right? And then we are going to use a ChatGPT step that helps us reply to them automatically. So that's exactly and the reason why formatter is very important is because when you're using AI models, right? Sometimes you might need to use formatter because some of these AI models make some mistakes when it comes to syntax and or formatter helps you to correct every of those mistakes. So this was the email that was sent initially. So I made an inquiry. I am Dexter. I want to know more about yourself. You can see that the reply was threaded, like it was more like it was replied in form of a thread. And then we are saying, hi Dexter, blah 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 blah. These are services, and for more info, do that. So how do we actually do this particular stuff? And I'm going to show you. So the first thing is that the trigger we're using is inbox, new email in my inbox. Let me edit it so that you can see exactly it's so new email in my inbox, right? So if I continue, so we have a chat step, right? You can see that we have a step. We are using the GPT 404 knots, right? And then this is exactly the prompt that I'm using to do something like that. As we are saying, we are an AI automation agency called SPAG AI, and we receive inquiry emails from our potential leads. Now we are putting the email body here. That's like the email from the previous step, and then we are putting iDexter, blah blah blah, and then the instruction we are giving the model is that generate an email replying to the inquiry email, right? So we are saying generate an email that replies to this particular inquiry email that was made and make it short. So that I'm giving it more context about my agency. And then we are saying that we have services and our full business automation is about $5,000. And then our payment automation is this. And then project management, we also have make.com services and all that. And we also give you information that for more information, then contact us at info@spagai.com. Do not include the subject of the email in the email, just output the body. Right? This is very, very important because sometimes the models just put the subject of the email right inside of the outputs. And I really don't want, I just want the body. Right? So that's exactly what I did here. And then I'm using this memory key. Memory key is used for when you want to get a consistent result, right? So it's just like having a memory. So we are telling the model to remember this particular output that we have. It's just like having a chart right in the chat GPT, like the normal chat GPT we have, right? So it remembers previous conversation. So that's exactly what we do with the stuff. So what we use here is like a particular function in formatter by Zapier that replaces text. So what are we exactly replacing? There's a particular option here that I want you to see is that right there we have something that says the SPAG AI team. So that's exactly what we want to replace. So we are using the now for you to get to the replace. Remember the replace is still under the text, right? And then click on continue, right? So it's going to ask us what exactly do you want to replace? Which particular, what is the input you want to find something that I want to replace? And we put the input there. So it's going to search through those string of text. And then it's going to look for the spaghetti item. That's what I'm saying. Fine. Please look for spaghetti item and replace it with AYB. And so that's exactly what we did right here. And that's why we have something like this. So this is the result email, you see that it is threaded and it's replied with its AYB. So these are like the few use cases that we usually come across when we are working with Formatter by Zapier. I hope these videos like encapsulates everything you need to know about Formatter by Zapier. Remember to like, subscribe to this channel. See you guys in the next one. Bye.